The wedding was beautiful. My son looked happy with his new bride. The reception hall was filled with flowers, music, and laughter. Then my grandson, just 5 years old, climbed onto my lap and whispered 6 words that made my blood run cold. "Grandma, they want to hurt you." I looked into his innocent eyes and saw pure fear. That's when I knew something terrible was about to happen. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. My name is Margaret. I'm 67 years old, though some days I feel much older, and some days much younger. This story begins at my son David's second wedding, but really it starts much earlier than that. It starts with choices, with warnings ignored, with love that became blind, and with a 5-year-old child who saw what none of us adults could see. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when I first met the woman who would become David's second wife. David's first wife, Linda, was my daughter-in-law for 15 years. She was kind, funny, hard-working. She and David met in college, married young, and had 2 children together. My grandson Tommy, who is now 5, and my granddaughter Sarah, who is 7. Linda was like a daughter to me. We had coffee every week. She called me for advice, and she always made sure I was included in family events. But marriages sometimes fall apart, even good ones. David and Linda divorced 3 years ago. It was amicable, as these things go. They shared custody of the kids, remained friendly, and both moved on with their lives. Linda started dating a kind man named Robert. David stayed single for a while, focusing on his work and his children. Then about a year and a half ago, David met Vanessa. I remember the first time he brought her to my house for Sunday dinner. She was beautiful, I'll admit that. Tall, blonde, perfectly dressed in expensive clothes. She smiled at me with very white teeth and shook my hand with long manicured nails. "Mrs. Patterson, it's so wonderful to finally meet you," she said in a sweet voice. "David has told me so much about you." Something about her smile didn't reach her eyes, but I pushed the thought away. I was determined to like her, to support my son's new relationship. Over dinner, Vanessa talked about her work in real estate, about the houses she sold, about her connections with wealthy clients. She mentioned several times how successful she was, how much money she made, how important her career was. "And your home is so charming," she said, looking around my modest dining room. "Very vintage." David laughed, but it sounded forced. "Mom's lived here for 30 years. It's full of memories." "Oh, I'm sure," Vanessa said. "Though you really should think about updating, Mrs. Patterson. These old houses can be worth quite a bit if they're modernized. I could give you some contacts if you ever want to sell." I felt a small chill but smiled politely. "I'm not planning to sell. This is my home." Of course, she said quickly. "I just meant, for the future. When you're older and might need something more manageable." I was 64 at the time. I jogged 3 times a week and volunteered at the library. I wasn't exactly ready for a nursing home. After they left, I called my best friend Helen. "I don't know," I told her. "There's something about her that feels off." "You're just protective of David," Helen said reasonably. "After the divorce, you're worried about him getting hurt again. Give her a chance." So I did. I really tried. Over the next few months, David and Vanessa's relationship moved quickly. Too quickly, in my opinion, but David seemed happy, so I kept my concerns to myself. They got engaged after 6 months of dating. David called to tell me, his voice excited like a teenager's. "Mom, I proposed." She said, "Yes, we're getting married." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, trying to inject enthusiasm into my voice. "I'm so happy for you." "There's one thing though," he said, his tone shifting slightly. "Vanessa thinks it would be better if the kids don't see Linda as much during the wedding planning, to avoid confusion." "Confusion?" I repeated. "David, Linda is their mother." I know, but Vanessa's going to be their stepmother, and she thinks it's important to establish that relationship without competition." I felt anger rising but kept my voice calm. "Linda isn't competition. She's their mother. That doesn't change because you're remarrying." "Mom, please, don't make this difficult. Vanessa has been so understanding about everything. Can't you just support me on this?" I wanted to say more, but I bit my tongue. "Of course I support you. I just want what's best for Tommy and Sarah." "I know. Me too. I have to go. Love you." He hung up before I could respond. Over the next months, I noticed changes. David visited less frequently. When he did come over, he seemed distracted, checking his phone constantly. Vanessa rarely joined him, always claiming she was too busy with work or wedding planning. My time with Tommy and Sarah also became more restricted. Where I used to keep them every other weekend, now I saw them once a month if I was lucky. When I asked David about it, he said Vanessa thought it was important for the kids to adjust to their new family dynamic. I am their family, I said, hurt. Of course you are, Mom. You're just being sensitive. Vanessa's not trying to keep the kids from you, she's just trying to create stability. But it felt like I was slowly being pushed out, and I wasn't the only one who noticed. Linda called me one afternoon, her voice strained. Margaret, I need to talk to you about something. Can we meet for coffee? We met at our usual cafe, the one where we used to have our weekly chats. Linda looked tired, worried. David's been limiting my time with the kids, she said without preamble. Our custody agreement says I have them every other week, but he keeps finding excuses. Tommy had a fever. Sarah had too much homework. Vanessa planned a special family outing. It's always something. Have you talked to your lawyer? I asked. I'm trying to avoid that. I don't want to turn this into a legal battle. But Margaret, the kids are changing. Last week when I picked up Tommy, he barely hugged me. When I asked what was wrong, he said Vanessa told him that mommies who leave don't love their children as much. I felt fury rise in my chest. She said what? I know. I wanted to confront her right there, but Tommy was watching. I don't want him caught in the middle of adult drama. Linda's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared, Margaret. I'm scared I'm losing my children. I reached across the table and took her hand. You're not losing them. We won't let that happen. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Vanessa seemed to have an almost hypnotic hold over David. He defended her constantly, made excuses for her behavior, and gradually distanced himself from anyone who questioned her. The wedding was set for June, a lavish affair at an expensive hotel. Vanessa's parents were paying for most of it, which made sense given their wealth. David's accounting job was comfortable but not extravagant. I offered to help with costs, but Vanessa declined. Oh no, Mrs. Patterson, that won't be necessary. My parents have it covered, but thank you for offering. There was something in her tone, something dismissive that bothered me. But again I said nothing. 2 weeks before the wedding, David came to my house. He seemed nervous, wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom, I need to talk to you about something. What is it, sweetheart? He took a deep breath. Vanessa and I have been talking about the future, about finances and planning, and making sure we're secure. That's smart, I said carefully. The thing is, we're going to need help, with the house, the wedding expenses, Vanessa's business expansion, and I know you've been planning to downsize anyway. I haven't been planning anything of the sort, I interrupted. He plowed on as if I hadn't spoken. Your house is worth a lot, Mom. If you sold it, you could move into a nice senior apartment, something smaller and easier to manage. And the proceeds from the sale could help us buy a bigger house, one where the kids would have more space, where we could host family gatherings. You want me to sell my house so you can buy a bigger one. It's not just that. It's about what makes sense for everyone. You don't need all this space. And Vanessa's found this wonderful senior community. Vanessa found it, I said flatly. Vanessa, who I've known for less than a year, has decided where I should live. Mom, don't be like that. She's trying to help. She's a real estate agent. She knows about these things. I'm not selling my house, David. His face hardened. Mom, I'm asking you to think about the family, about what's best for everyone, not just yourself. I am thinking about the family. This house has been in our family for 30 years. This is where you grew up, where Tommy and Sarah come to bake cookies with me. This is our home. It's your house, Mom, not ours. You're being selfish. The words stung like a slap. I'm being selfish. David, I raised you alone after your father died. I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. I've babysat. I've helped with money when you needed it. I've supported you through everything. And now I'm selfish because I won't sell my home to fund your wife's real estate ambitions. He stood up, his face red. I should have known you wouldn't understand. Vanessa said you'd react this way. She said you'd try to control my life like you always have. I have never tried to control your life. Really? Then why do you have a problem with every decision I make? Why can't you just be happy for me? I am happy for you. I'm just not happy about being manipulated by someone who sees your family as dollar signs. Don't talk about her like that. He was shouting now.
You don't know her, you've never given her a chance. You're just jealous that I have someone in my life who actually supports me, instead of judging everything I do." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I sat in my living room shaking, feeling like I'd just lost my son. I called Helen, crying. "He thinks I'm controlling. He thinks I'm jealous. How did this happen?" "Vanessa happened," Helen said grimly. "I've seen this before, Margaret. She's isolating him, turning him against anyone who might interfere with her plans. Classic manipulation. What do I do?"
You stand firm. You don't give in. And you document everything, just in case. Just in case what? Just in case it gets worse. It got worse. David didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. When he finally called, it was to tell me, very formally, that I was still invited to the wedding, but that I shouldn't expect to be in any of the family photos or sit at the main table. "Vanessa thinks it would be better if you sat with her distant cousins, to avoid any tension." I was being relegated to the outskirts of my own son's wedding. I wanted to refuse to go, to make a stand, but I couldn't, because Tommy and Sarah would be there, and they needed to know their grandmother was present, even if she was being pushed aside. The week before the wedding, I got an unexpected visit from Linda. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. "Margaret, something's wrong with Tommy. He's been having nightmares. He won't tell me what they're about, but he keeps saying he's scared for you." "Scared for me? Why?" "I don't know, but yesterday when I picked him up from David's house, Tommy clung to me and said, 'Mommy, we have to protect Grandma.' When I asked what he meant, he said he couldn't tell me because it was a secret." My stomach twisted. A secret. I tried to get more out of him, but he shut down completely. "Margaret, I think he overheard something. Something about you. About me. What could he have heard?" "I don't know, but I know my son. He's terrified, and Tommy doesn't get scared easily. We tried calling David, but he didn't answer." When I drove to his house, Vanessa answered the door with a cold smile. "Margaret, what a surprise. I need to see Tommy. He's napping. Then I'll wait." "I don't think that's a good idea. David's not home, and we have a rule about unannounced visits. I'm his grandmother. I don't need an announcement." Her smile vanished. "Actually, you do. This is our home, and we decide who visits and when. If you can't respect our boundaries, maybe it's better if you limit your time with the children until after the wedding. We don't need any additional stress." She closed the door in my face. I stood on the porch, shaking with fury and fear. Something was very wrong, and I couldn't figure out what it was. The wedding day arrived. It was a beautiful June afternoon. The hotel decorated lavishly with white roses and gold accents. I wore a simple blue dress and sat in the back, watching as my son married a woman I didn't trust. Tommy and Sarah were in the wedding party. Sarah looked uncomfortable in her flower girl dress, and Tommy, in his little suit, kept looking around the room with wide, worried eyes. During the ceremony, Tommy's eyes kept finding mine. Each time he looked more distressed. I tried to smile reassuringly, but I could see he was struggling not to cry. The reception was in a grand ballroom. True to David's word, I was seated at a table with people I'd never met, far from the family tables. I watched as Vanessa worked the room, her hand possessively on David's arm, smiling for photos, accepting congratulations. About an hour into the reception, after the dinner had been served and the speeches were done, Tommy slipped away from the kids' table and made his way to me. He climbed into my lap without a word, his small body trembling. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly, hugging him close. "Are you having fun?" He shook his head, his face buried in my shoulder. Then he lifted his head and looked at me with those serious 5-year-old eyes. "Grandma," he whispered, "they want to hurt you." My heart stopped. "What? Who wants to hurt me?" "Daddy and Vanessa. I heard them talking. In the office. They think I was sleeping, but I wasn't. I was under the desk. They were talking about your house and papers, and making you sign something." "What kind of papers, Tommy?" "I don't know, but Vanessa said today was the perfect day because everyone would be here, and you couldn't say no. She said if you tried to leave, people would think you were being mean to Daddy. And if you made a scene, everyone would think you were—" He struggled with a big word. "Incompetent. Incompetent. They were going to try to make me look incompetent." "Tommy, where are they planning to do this?" "There's a room, in the back, by the kitchen. Vanessa's daddy and a man with papers are waiting there. They're going to ask you to come look at wedding photos, but it's not photos, it's papers. Papers that take your house. My blood ran cold. How do you know all this, sweetheart? I listen, he said simply. Adults think kids don't understand, but I understand. Vanessa is bad, Grandma. She's mean to Mommy on the phone. She says bad things about you. She tells Daddy lies. And she's going to take your house. I looked at this brave little boy, this 5-year-old who had been carrying this terrible secret, trying to protect me. Tommy, you're very brave. Thank you for telling me. We have to go, he said urgently. We have to leave before they find you. He was right. But if I left now, it would look exactly like they wanted. Like I was causing a scene, disrupting the wedding, behaving irrationally. Tommy, I need you to do something for me. Go find your mommy. Tell her what you told me. Can you do that? He nodded and climbed down from my lap. I watched as he made his way through the crowd toward Linda, who was sitting on the far side of the room. I needed evidence. If what Tommy said was true, there were people in a back room with documents right now. If I could see those documents, maybe photograph them, I stood up and made my way casually toward the back of the ballroom, as if I was just looking for the restroom. The area near the kitchen was less crowded. I could see a hallway with several doors. I walked slowly, trying to look like I belonged there. Near the end of the hallway, I heard voices coming from behind a partially closed door. Should be here by now. David said he'd bring her back here in 15 minutes. Give him time. He's working up to it. She's stubborn. I recognized Vanessa's voice, and a man's voice I didn't recognize, probably her father. The documents are ready. Everything's legal, completely legal. Power of attorney, property transfer papers, everything we need. Once she signs these, we have control of her assets. The house can be sold within a month. And if she refuses, that's where the incompetency evaluation comes in. We have a psychologist ready to testify that she's showing signs of dementia. We've been documenting her erratic behavior. The missed appointments, the confusion, the paranoia about Vanessa. My hands were shaking. They'd been building a case against me, creating a paper trail of fabricated evidence. What about the kids? Won't they say something? Vanessa laughed. They're children. Who's going to believe them? Besides, once we have the house and the money, we can move the kids into a better situation. Maybe reduce Linda's custody even more. Those kids need stability, not a bitter ex-wife and a senile grandmother filling their heads with nonsense. I felt sick. They weren't just after my house. They were planning to take Tommy and Sarah away from Linda too. I backed away from the door carefully. I needed to get out of here. I needed to call my lawyer, call the police, do something. But as I turned, I nearly collided with David. Mom, there you are. I've been looking for you. His smile was too bright, too forced. This was it. He was going to try to lead me to that room. David, I was just heading to the restroom. Oh, that's okay. That can wait. I wanted to show you something first. Vanessa set up a special room with our wedding photos, just for family. Come on, it's just back here. He took my arm, his grip firm. Too firm. David, I really need to. It'll just take a minute, Mom, please. It would mean a lot to Vanessa. He was leading me toward that hallway, toward that room, where Vanessa and her father were waiting with documents that would steal everything from me. I pulled my arm away. No, Mom, I said no, David. I'm not going to that room. His face changed, the mask slipping. Mom, don't do this. Don't make a scene at my wedding. I'm not making a scene. I'm just not going to that room. Why not? What's wrong with you? I know what's in that room, David. I know about the papers, the power of attorney, the property transfer. I know you're trying to steal my house. His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. And you know what's sad? You're my son. I would have helped you if you'd asked. If you'd been honest with me about needing money, about struggling financially, I would have found a way. But this, plotting to declare me incompetent, forging documents, having me sign away my rights at your own wedding where I couldn't escape or make a scene without looking crazy? This isn't just greedy, David. This is cruel. Mom, you're not understanding. I understand perfectly. You've been documenting evidence of my incompetence, missed appointments I was never told about, confusion that never happened, paranoia that was actually justified concern. You've been building a case to have me declared unfit so you can take control of my assets. And you thought today, at your wedding with all these witnesses, would be the perfect time to trap me into signing. Vanessa appeared in the hallway, her smile sharp. Margaret, you're being dramatic. David just wants to show you some photos. I heard you, I said. Through the door, I heard every word. The power of attorney, the property transfer, the plan to reduce Linda's custody, all of it. Her eyes narrowed. You're confused. That's exactly the kind of paranoid behavior David has been worried about. I'm not confused, and I'm not signing anything. You can tell your father and your lawyer friend that they've wasted their time. David grabbed my arm again, harder this time. Mom, you're making a mistake. Just come into the room and we'll talk about this calmly. Let go of me. Mom, please, I said, let go. My raised voice had attracted attention. People were looking our way, including Linda, who was pushing through the crowd with Tommy in her arms. Margaret, are you okay? Linda called out. Vanessa's face was furious. This is exactly what we were talking about. She's causing a scene, being disruptive. David, maybe we should call someone. Call someone, I repeated, like the psychologist you have on standby to declare me incompetent. More people were gathering now. Vanessa's parents emerged from the room looking alarmed. And I saw, behind them, a man in a suit with a briefcase. Is this him? I asked, pointing. Is this your lawyer with the documents? Linda reached us, setting Tommy down. Margaret, what's going on? They tried to trap me. At the wedding, they have documents in that room. Power of attorney, property transfer papers. They were going to manipulate me into signing away my house, my rights, everything. David's face was red. That's not true. Mom, you're not well. You're imagining things. Tommy stepped forward, his little voice loud in the suddenly quiet hallway. No, she's not. I heard you. I heard you and Vanessa talking about taking Grandma's house. You said she wouldn't say no at the wedding because everyone would think she was being mean. David looked down at his son, shocked. Tommy, you don't understand. I do understand. You're being bad. You and Vanessa are trying to steal from Grandma. Sarah pushed through the crowd too. Is that true, Daddy? Are you trying to take Grandma's house? Vanessa tried to smile. Kids, this is adult business. You don't understand. We understand lying, Sarah said, her 7-year-old voice clear and strong. And stealing. That's what you're doing. The crowd was murmuring now. Vanessa's careful facade was cracking. People were looking at the man with the briefcase, at the room behind them, putting pieces together. Linda pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. Don't be ridiculous, Vanessa snapped. There's nothing illegal happening here. Then you won't mind if they come take a look at those documents, I said. Vanessa's father stepped forward, his voice commanding. Everyone calm down. This is a misunderstanding. Margaret, we simply wanted to discuss some financial planning options with you, help you protect your assets as you get older. By having me sign power of attorney over to my son and his new wife at a wedding, without my own lawyer present, that's not financial planning, that's elder abuse. The murmuring grew louder. Someone in the crowd said, I've heard about this kind of thing. They target older people, get them to sign things when they're emotional or confused. Vanessa looked panicked. That's not what this is. Then show everyone the documents, I said. Let everyone see what you wanted me to sign. The lawyer with the briefcase tried to back away, but Helen, my friend who had been watching from the crowd, blocked his path. Oh no, you don't. If those papers are innocent, let's see them. David looked at Vanessa, at his children, at me, and finally at the gathering crowd. I saw the moment reality crash down on him. His face crumbled. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry, Mom. Too late for sorry, Linda said, her phone to her ear. Yes, hello. I need to report an attempted fraud at the Riverside Hotel. The rest of the wedding dissolved into chaos. Police arrived. The documents were examined and photographed. The lawyer was questioned. Vanessa's parents tried to claim ignorance, but the police found emails, text messages, a whole paper trail of their planning. David sat on a chair in the hallway, his head in his hands, while his new wife paced and yelled about how this was all a misunderstanding, how I was senile and vindictive, how she was the victim. But the evidence was clear. The documents were real. The plan was real. And my 5-year-old grandson had heard enough of it to warn me just in time. The police suggested I file charges. Linda encouraged it. Helen insisted on it. They tried to steal from you, Helen said. They need to face consequences. I looked at David, at my son who had been so manipulated, so blinded by Vanessa's influence that he'd been willing to betray his own mother. I'll think about it, I said. In the end, I did file charges, not against David, but against Vanessa, her parents and their lawyer. Attempted fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, forgery of documents.
David filed for an annulment 2 weeks after the wedding. The marriage was so short and so clearly based on fraud that it was granted quickly. Vanessa was convicted of attempted fraud and served 2 years in prison. Her real estate license was revoked. Her parents faced fines and community service. The lawyer was disbarred. David moved back to a smaller apartment. He went to therapy, lots of therapy, to understand how he'd been manipulated, how he'd almost destroyed his relationship with his mother and his children. The first few months after the wedding disaster were the hardest. David was devastated, not just by the betrayal, but by his own complicity. He had to face the fact that he'd been willing to steal from his own mother, to manipulate her, to declare her incompetent. That's not easy for anyone to accept about themselves. I remember the first time he came to see me after everything fell apart. It was 3 weeks after the wedding. He stood on my porch, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 3 weeks. His eyes were red from crying, his face gaunt from not eating. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking, "I don't know if you'll even let me in. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, but I need to say something." I stepped aside and let him in. We sat in my living room, the same living room where he'd grown up, where we'd had countless conversations over the years, but this felt different, heavier. "I'm so sorry," he said, and then he broke down completely. "I'm so sorry for everything, for believing her lies about you, for thinking you were controlling when you were just trying to protect me, for planning to steal your house, for almost destroying our family. I don't know how I became that person, Mom. I don't know how I let her turn me into someone who would hurt you." I let him cry. He needed to, and honestly, I needed to see it. I needed to know that he understood the magnitude of what had almost happened. "David," I said when he'd calmed down a bit, "I need you to understand something. What Vanessa did was terrible, yes, but you made choices too. You chose to listen to her instead of your own judgment. You chose to distance yourself from me, from Linda, from anyone who questioned her. You chose to participate in that plan." "I know," he whispered. "I know, and I have to live with that." "Yes, you do, and so do I. Because my son, the boy I raised, the man I thought I knew, was willing to betray me in the cruelest way possible." He flinched, but he needed to hear it. "But," I continued, "I also know that good people can make terrible mistakes, that love can make us blind, that manipulation is real and powerful, especially when it comes from someone we trust. So I'm willing to work on rebuilding. But it's going to take time, David, a lot of time. I'll do whatever it takes," he said. "Therapy, family counseling, anything. I just want to be better. For you, for the kids, for myself." And he did. He started seeing a therapist twice a week. Dr. Richardson specialized in manipulation and coercive control. She helped David understand how Vanessa had used classic manipulation techniques, love bombing, isolation, gaslighting, to break down his defenses and remake him into someone who would serve her purposes. "She identified my vulnerabilities," David told me after one session. "My fear of being alone after the divorce, my desire to feel successful and provide for my family, my need for approval, and she exploited every single one of them." "Did she love you at all?" I asked. I knew it was a painful question, but it needed to be asked. David was quiet for a long moment. "I don't think so, Mom. I think she loved what I represented. A respectable man with assets she could access, a connection to you and your house, custody of children she could use as leverage. But me, as a person? No, I don't think she ever loved me." That realization broke something in him, but it also freed him, because once he accepted that the relationship had never been real, he could start to heal from it. Linda was remarkably gracious through all of this. She could have used the situation to take full custody of the kids, to punish David for how he'd treated her, but she didn't.
"Those kids need their father," she told me over coffee one afternoon. "Not the person he became with Vanessa, but the person he really is. And I think that person is still in there, trying to get out." She was right. Slowly, painfully, David was finding himself again. He started spending more time with Tommy and Sarah, real quality time. Not the performative family outings Vanessa had organized, but genuine connection. They went to the park, played board games, talked about their feelings. Tommy, especially, needed reassurance. He'd been carrying so much fear and responsibility on his little shoulders. He'd had nightmares after the wedding, dreams where bad people were chasing his grandma and he couldn't save her. David held him through those nightmares, apologizing over and over for putting him in that position. You shouldn't have had to protect Grandma from me, he told Tommy. That was wrong. Daddies are supposed to protect their families, not hurt them. But you were being tricked, Tommy said with the wisdom of a child. Vanessa was like the witch in the story. She made you forget who you really are. Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. Sarah processed things differently. She was angrier, more guarded. At 7, she understood more than Tommy did about betrayal and broken trust. She refused to go to David's apartment for the first few weeks, clinging to Linda and saying she didn't want to see him. I talked to her about it one afternoon when she was at my house. Sarah, sweetie, can we talk about Daddy? She crossed her arms. I don't want to talk about him. I know you're angry. I'm angry too. What he did was wrong. He tried to steal your house. He was mean to Mommy. He was going to let Vanessa take us away from Mommy. I know, and he's very sorry for all of that. Sorry doesn't fix it, she said, her 7-year-old face set in stubborn lines that reminded me so much of myself. You're right, sorry doesn't fix it. But Sarah, people make mistakes, even big ones, and when they do, they have 2 choices. They can pretend it didn't happen and stay the same, or they can admit they were wrong, learn from it, and become better. Daddy's trying to become better. But how do you know, she asked, her voice small. How do you know he won't be bad again? It was a fair question. How do any of us know? We don't know for sure, I admitted, but we can watch his actions. We can see if he does what he says he'll do. We can give him a chance to prove he's changed, and if he doesn't, if he hurts us again, then we protect ourselves. But Sarah, everyone deserves a chance to make things right, even Daddy. It took another 2 weeks, but Sarah finally agreed to see David. Their first visit was awkward, tense, but David didn't push. He let Sarah lead. He answered her questions honestly, even when the answers made him look bad. Did you really want to take Grandma's house? She asked. Yes, he said, I did, and that was wrong, very wrong. Did you love Vanessa more than us? No, I thought I loved Vanessa, but I was confused. I loved an idea of her that wasn't real, and I let that confusion make me hurt the people I really love. You, Tommy, Mommy, and Grandma. I'm so sorry, Sarah. What if you get confused again? Then I hope you'll tell me, like Tommy told Grandma. Sometimes kids see things more clearly than adults do. Gradually, carefully, they rebuilt their relationship. It wasn't the same as before. There was a wariness now, a need for proof rather than blind trust, but maybe that was healthier anyway. As for me, I had my own healing to do. The betrayal had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. I'd always prided myself on being a good judge of character, on being strong and independent, but Vanessa had nearly destroyed me, and my own son had been the weapon she'd used. I started going to therapy too, not because I was incompetent, as they'd tried to claim, but because I needed help processing the trauma of what had almost happened. My therapist, Dr. Chen, helped me understand something important. Margaret, you didn't fail. You saw the warning signs. You trusted your instincts. You protected yourself. That's not weakness. That's strength. But I almost lost everything, I said. Almost, but you didn't, because you were smart and careful, and you had people who loved you. Tommy, Linda, Helen, they all stood by you when it mattered. She was right. I hadn't been alone. Even when David had turned against me, I'd had other people in my corner. Helen had been particularly amazing through everything. She'd helped me find a lawyer, had attended every meeting with me, had been my advocate when I felt too overwhelmed to advocate for myself. That's what friends are for, she said when I thanked her. I wasn't going to let them steal from you, not without a fight. The legal proceedings took months. Vanessa's lawyer tried to claim that I had misunderstood, that the documents were innocent estate planning tools, but the emails told a different story. In one particularly damning message, Vanessa had written to her father, "Once we have power of attorney, we can sell her house within a month. She'll be in a senior facility before she knows what hit her, and we'll have the money for our down payment." In another email, she'd discussed reducing Linda's custody. The less time those kids spend with their bitter mother, the better. We need them on our side, loyal to us. Once Margaret is out of the picture and we control the finances, we can afford better lawyers to fight Linda in court. The prosecution had a field day with those emails. They showed a clear pattern of intent to defraud, to manipulate, to abuse an elderly person for financial gain. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I had to testify about what I'd overheard, about Tommy's warning, about the documents they'd tried to make me sign. It was exhausting and humiliating to have my life examined so publicly, but it was also vindicating, because the jury saw through Vanessa's lies. They saw her for what she was, a predator who targeted vulnerable people for financial gain. When the guilty verdict came in, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. Justice had been served. The system had worked. I was safe. Vanessa's parents tried to appeal, claiming their daughter had been unfairly targeted, that I was vindictive and had manipulated the situation. But the appeals court upheld the conviction. The evidence was too strong, the intent too clear. I attended Vanessa's sentencing hearing. She stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit, all her polish and perfection stripped away. She glared at me with pure hatred. The judge was not sympathetic. "Miss Peterson, you engaged in a calculated, cruel scheme to defraud an elderly woman of her home and her rights. You manipulated her son, used her grandchildren, and showed no remorse for your actions. This court sentences you to 2 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. Additionally, you are ordered to pay restitution to Mrs. Patterson in the amount of $50,000 for legal fees and emotional distress." Vanessa's facade cracked. "This is ridiculous. She's not even hurt. She still has her precious house. I'm the victim here." The judge's expression hardened. "Miss Peterson, your lack of remorse is noted. Bailiff, remove her." As they led her away, Vanessa turned and spat at me. "This isn't over, old woman. When I get out, you'll regret this." The bailiff grabbed her arm. "That's enough. Move." After the sentencing, Linda hugged me tight. "It's finally over." "Is it though?" I asked. "She threatened me in open court, and that threat is now on record," my lawyer said. "If she comes near you after her release, we'll have her back in court for violating the restraining order. You're protected, Margaret. Protected legally, perhaps, but the emotional scars took longer to heal. It took time, but slowly we rebuilt." David apologized, genuinely and repeatedly. He took responsibility for his actions. He worked to be better. He got a new job, one that paid better and gave him more stability. He moved to a better apartment, one where Tommy and Sarah each had their own room for when they stayed with him. He paid me back the money I'd spent on lawyers, even though I told him he didn't have to. "I want to," he said. "I need to make amends in every way I can." He also started volunteering with an organization that helped elderly people avoid financial scams. He shared his story, painful as it was, to help others recognize the warning signs of manipulation. "If my mistake can help someone else," he told me, "then maybe it means something. Maybe I can turn something terrible into something good." I was proud of him for that, for having the courage to be vulnerable, to admit his failures publicly in service of helping others. The house that they'd tried to steal? I'm still living in it, and Tommy and Sarah come over every weekend, just like they used to. We bake cookies, we read stories, and Tommy is my little hero, the boy who saved his grandma. Last month, on Tommy's 6th birthday, I asked him how he'd been so brave at the wedding. "I wasn't brave, Grandma," he said seriously. "I was scared, but you always tell us to protect the people we love. You're my grandma. I had to protect you." Out of the mouths of babes, as they say. This 5-year-old child had more integrity, more courage, more love than many adults I've known. People often ask me if I regret what happened, if I wish I'd handled things differently. My answer is always the same: no. Because what happened at that wedding exposed a truth that needed to be exposed. It showed my son the person he was becoming, and gave him a chance to change. It protected my home and my rights. And most importantly, it taught my grandchildren that standing up for what's right is more important than keeping the peace. Vanessa taught them about manipulation and greed. But Tommy and Sarah also learned about courage, integrity, and the importance of protecting the people you love. Sometimes the most important lessons come from the darkest moments, and sometimes the greatest heroes are 5 years old with shaking hands and brave hearts. I'm 67 years old now, still in my house, still close with my grandchildren, and slowly rebuilding my relationship with my son. Is our relationship what it was? No, but it's honest now, in a way it never was before. David knows what he almost lost. He knows what he almost became. And he's spending every day trying to be better, to be the man his children deserve, the son I raised him to be. As for Tommy, he's 6 now, starting 1st grade, and still the bravest person I know. When people ask him what he wants to be when he grows up, he says a protector. Because that's what he is. That's what he's always been.
My little protector, my hero, the child who saw danger and spoke up when it mattered most. So if you're watching this and you're facing something similar, if you feel like something is wrong but everyone is telling you you're imagining it, listen to your instincts. Listen to the people who love you, even if they're only 5 years old, because sometimes the smallest voices tell the biggest truths. And sometimes the greatest act of love is a whispered warning. Grandma, we need to leave now. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for caring about these important issues. And if you or someone you know is facing elder abuse or family manipulation, please reach out for help. There are resources, there are people who care, there is hope. Take care of yourselves, protect the people you love, and always, always listen to the children. They see more than we think. God bless you all.